Good afternoon, everyone. Whoa, it's a little blurry and everything. So, um, the Go Biz Guy, the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. Today, I tell you what, I have a hard time even introducing this guy. I mean, he's family's very successful. His dad's very successful. He's very successful, and he's just an excellent entrepreneur. And so, what's cool about him is that he was first. I don't know. He he had some difficulties making his success. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But before I go on, so I'm just going to introduce him, and it's Ray Leonard Jr. Welcome aboard, Ray.
Thanks for having me, Lauren. Excited to be here and have this conversation today.
Yeah.
Uh, I love that we start with prayer before we get onto the podcast. But that's what I was brought up in, and still a very spiritual man. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. And one of my buddies, he used to be a chaplain for the Major League Baseball, and so Kevin is a dear friend of mine. We grew up together in California, and I'm from Ventura originally.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're from two separate coasts. I'm from Maryland, of course. I grew up and was born and raised in Maryland in the Washington D.C. area. So I've been out in California for about 16 years now.
Oh wow! Whereabouts in Cali?
Yeah, in Southern California. I live in a little town called Temecula, which is Southern California wine country. And
wow!
Yeah, I have to tell you about that trip with the wife and kids when I decided to make the move out here.
Wow, that's pretty awesome because what's the other one up around San Francisco? Sonoma? Is that the wine country?
Napa,
Sonoma, same thing, right? No.
There's a bunch of them up there. They are the originators.
Yeah, but I've been to Napa and everything a long time ago. But so it's pretty cool. So let me ask you, what is the craziest thing you've ever witnessed in your life?
I don't think I can say that on this podcast.
That's pretty dang funny right there. I've never had anybody say that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No. I mean, I've lived an incredible life and seen so many things. Been a part of amazing journeys as being born to two teenage parents in poverty, and then everything changing up pretty quickly. My father becoming the gold medalist winner from boxing in 1976 Olympics when he wasn't expected to win at all, and then our lives just kind of changed really quickly. So I went from being in a neighborhood where it was no way out to sitting with Nelson Mandela and the Queen of England.
Oh, wow.
And those kind of people, and Muhammad Ali is my godfather.
Wow.
So, I mean, I've had a life that is for the storybooks, and so if they ever do a movie on my life, I mean, my father's life is epic in itself, but my life is just as exciting, or maybe even more so, because I was the kind of the the narrator for this story. I was almost like, who is that? The Morgan Freeman for this whole crazy story.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Morgan Freeman. I mean, for you to mention Muhammad Ali and everything being your godfather, I mean, that puts you in a whole different class, dude. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Very special. And so, so you really didn't see any crazy stuff recently?
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, I've been friends with Mike Tyson for over 30 years. So
okay, so yeah,
I've seen crazy stuff.
Okay.
I was at party, several parties with Diddy and
oh gosh.
I mean, I've seen it all.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I totally get you that you can't put it on a podcast because so how is Mike Tyson doing? I mean, is he all right? I mean,
yeah. My brother, he's he's come through a lot.
Yes, he has. Yeah.
To deal with all the from being abused as a young man to having stratospheric fame and wealth and getting taken advantage of by the people that were around him,
Yeah.
to losing his 4-year-old daughter, to having drug and alcohol abuse, and coming back to where he is right now. I'm just proud of him
Yeah.
from where he is right now. And so, like, people see him as this caricature of himself, but he's a human being. He's a person. And so, they, like, as I always say, and I grew up in the Baptist church, and the Bible says, "Judge, lest not you be judged," right? And so,
Right.
every man and woman can redeem themselves through their spirit and what they want to do. If you make the
It,
effort. So I'm just proud of where he is and from where he came from.
well, he just had a health issue come up before the fight, and it's crazy. And then, yeah, so he has had an interesting life and everything, and for you to be around him and all these special people is pretty awesome and everything. So let me ask you another question. What is your favorite music genre? What do you like in music? And you like wine, right? So,
Yeah,
so,
my wife is the wine connoisseur. My wife runs 2 wineries here in our little town of Temecula,
oh my
and
gosh, wow.
what she has, what they call a super palate, and she just kind of found that out by uh, you know, going out and getting into the business, what she was interested in, and it just turned out that she is one of the baddest black women in the whole country. So,
Oh, wow.
in the wine space, but for me, it's always been about growth and gravitation. My grandfather told me, "You know better, you do better." So it's always been a learning and educational space for me. And so everything that I do is from a standpoint of curiosity and learning. So even in the wine space, which is, kind of, it's still kind of foreign to me because
Okay.
because
All right. Yeah.
I don't know it that well.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is understanding human behavior and how we can actually help each other to grow and be better.
So your favorite music genre, what is that?
Okay, I got you. Here we go. So I am from a musical family. My name is Ray Charles Leonard. My
Oh, really?
grandmother,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So my grandmother was a major Ray Charles fan. My family we have a lot of singers in my family. I produced a lot of music. My first thing is that if you actually YouTube some stuff, you can actually find some of my records back in the day when I was just starting out into the music business. I produced some music for some big artists, and I still love music. My kids are into music. We are creative people. We creative people and athletes. That's for the most part of what we are. But my favorite music genre, to actually ask your question, is jazz.
Yes.
Uh,
Thank you. There you
I'm
go.
a huge,
Right.
huge jazz fan, and because jazz was the most creative and undisciplined music at the same time, so there was no judgment in jazz. You could go from scat to wherever you wanted to go, and nobody was going to judge the music. They just enjoyed the moment. So that's my favorite genre, and there's so many different things that has come from jazz music, from hip hop to R&B to uh, rock and roll to, I mean, even there's a big classical hint into jazz music.
Well, you hit a nerve with me because I love jazz as well. And my dad, um, I came from kind of a, a dysfunctional family, and somebody says, well,
Didn't we all?
every family in America is dysfunctional, brother. Okay.
But
And
at some point, there's some that's more dysfunctional than others.
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And so I went to live with my dad, and he's the reason why I became a Christian and everything. But he had this room in his apartment and everything in Santa Barbara, and he had this reel to reel, and all he played, man, with those big speakers. I'm dating myself now. All it was jazz, and I absolutely fell in love with jazz. And so and Pandora, in the morning, I'll listen to some really contemporary Christian music, and then I'll flip to some Brazilian jazz, and then I'll flip to some classic jazz. And I just really have an appreciation for jazz. And I think you're absolutely right when you talk about, because there's a blues segment of jazz, right? And
Yes.
I think that blues segment of jazz helped the rock and roll, helped the Beatles, helped everybody to find that genre that they were good at, right?
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, the main thing with the music, there were no boundaries, and so blues, you had to stay within a rhythmic riff, right? And then,
Hmm.
classical, you had to stay within a certain key tone, or you didn't really go. I mean, when you had Mozart that started to do things outside the box, that people just kind of went a little crazy, like, what is he doing? But jazz has always been about expression. So it was
Hmm.
no judgment on where you went. So it took every single genre from blues to classical to rock and roll, and turned it into an art form. They would play and just jam.
Yeah.
I go back to, I mean, I wasn't in the 20s,
Right.
but
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I could imagine Harlem, or imagine the Chitlin circuit of artists that were just playing just to play, and just trying to figure out, like, hey, what sounds good, what moves the audience.
Well, and we kind of then you kind of go into New Orleans, right? I mean, and that's like the capital. Thank you. Too much coffee, not enough food. Wow. Of blues, I mean, and so it's just amazing. I am not musically inclined. In fact, in church, people move away from me when I sing. And they just look at me like, why don't you shut your mouth? And I don't do it to honor them, And so, but I tell you what, I don't know why I appreciate. I'm not such an opera guy, but I love all kinds of genre. Like I'll listen to Led Zeppelin. I'll flip it back over to some Doors, or, Jimi Hendrix, whatever. Now I'm really dating myself, but I really think it's music is such an outlet for people, and there's something about it that soothes the soul, right?
I would tell you, Lauren, music has guided me through my darkest days.
Okay.
And everything in my life is a rhythm. So when I get up and run in the morning, which I just started back, and I'm friggin' hurting right now because I'm,
Ibuprofen is your king, right?
oh my gosh, 50
Yeah.
years old, and I just started. I'm normally a pretty healthy guy, but then the last like 6 months, I've just been working like crazy. So it's been tough the last 2 days just to start getting back into jogging and meditating and doing all the things that I've done to be successful to this point. But music is the soundtrack of my life.
Okay.
From me when I was in high school, listening to Pink Floyd, to Santana, who was one of my favorite guitarists and
Yes.
artists,
Yes.
over to Enya, and to Hiroshima,
Oh,
and
yes. Right.
and to Wu Tang hip hop. I mean,
Yes. Right.
I
Yeah.
run the gambit. I love music. I listen to the Zach Brown band for like, or Hootie and the Blowfish for country music. I
Right.
just
Right. Yeah.
I love music, and I love storytelling, and
Yeah.
so it is exciting to me to hear it from people who are telling their stories, but telling it from an authentic standpoint. And so that's one of the things that I love about life. And I think it needs to be more of that, and not to be so um, curated. But you tell your story from the point of pain and things you've gone to, because it's lessons that we all learn from the past and history. And that's kind of my whole movement. So.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
I think I went a little too far from music into a whole kind of thought process
No,
of
no, because that's very important. Because as you know, or you may not know, but my wife passed away not too long ago, and
yes,
music
my
was this.
condolences to you.
Thank you. Let me just share with you how she passed, because music played a significant role. Okay. She was on her deathbed at hospice. I hope I don't start crying about this, but it was so touching that there was a guy singing Hallelujah. and she was about ready to take her last breath.
Mm.
And so as she took her last breath, Ray, this guy blurted out hallelujah, and she took her final breath at the same time. Okay.
Wow.
And so when you talk about music playing an absolute role, I mean, Jesus did that for me. And I just really am so thankful because there's nothing like that will ever take place in my whole life. But music at all times of life plays an important role. I mean, if you look at teenagers, and I don't know, sometimes people say, well, some of the music now is tainted with drug emphasis and everything else like that. And so I don't know. I don't listen to enough of that side of the coin. But again, music is just so awesome. And so we'll shift gears a little bit. And I want to talk to you a little bit about your grandparents. And talk a little bit about their influence in your life.
So my grandparents were a huge influence in my life because my parents were teenagers and just learning how to move and dealing with the going from zero to hero and all the success and all the things that are thrown at you. And like most people don't think about, because I represent a lot of these athletes at a young age, and
Mm-hmm.
seeing when you come from a space where there is no guidance to a space where everybody is looking at you, and they want to take advantage of you because of your success. But my grandparents were always the grounding force. My grandfather on my father's side was a sharecropper. He had a sixth grade
Oh, wow.
education.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 7 kids, and figured out how to take care of all of them. He moved up as working as a grocery store clerk, and to move from family from South Carolina to Washington D.C. and figured it out. and he was a strong silent type. He was a Navy veteran, and he just never gave up. And everything that he said, I may have a sixth grade education, but I'm always learning. And that was one of the biggest things that he taught me from his side. And then my grandmother was my father's mother. She was a take no mess woman, and she still is.
I
She
love it.
she
Yeah.
she you let nobody tell you who you are. You understand who you are in your heart, and you stand strong. And that is the type of woman that she is. She is, part Cherokee Indian,
Oh,
and
wow.
she is a pistol still to this day at 92 years old. My
Oh,
grandfather
man.
passed away at 96.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but my family lives a long time
Uh-huh.
on both sides, and my mother's mother is just a rock, and then my grandfather on my mother's side who just passed about a year and a
Wow.
half ago.
My condolences. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and but he was, just the coolest cat in the world. And so I think I got a little bit of influence from all of them. They
Okay.
taught me how to cook, taught me how to take care of myself, but also taught me how to be humble and understand that like your time in the spotlight may be fleeting, but what you do and how you leave your legacy and how you react and treat people always stands the test of time.
Well, how did they know, your legacy? I mean, did they know that was your dad always, he started at 19 as a boxer. When were you actually born into the family?
Well, he actually started at 14 as a boxer. So
I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. My uncle Roger was actually the first superstar boxer in the family. Ended up being the number two uh, welterweight in the world, but he had a massive drug addiction, and
Oh,
so
my.
he lost one fight, and that was a championship fight, and that kept him from being a champion.
Oh, wow.
But what he did do is, kept my father out of the same lifestyle that he was in, and got him to the gym to be able to go and have a place that was a sanctuary, that he wasn't going to be in the drugs and the same thing that he was in. So, um, it was my family was never based upon the success of my father. It was on being a proud family, and everything that we did, we from my grandparents and then from my parents. It was the thing of that, like, we need to live as if we're successful already. We need to be proud of our heritage, and our legacy is not just what we have from a financial standpoint or a fame standpoint, but it comes to what we do and how we treat people. And so that was always the core and culture, and I think that's why I'm the way I am today.
Why do you think, this is kind of a sidebar, but why do you think drugs plays an important role in all sports at a higher level? Or is it even at a lower level? Or so when you get to be, a champion, or you become a outstanding linebacker for a super team or Major League Baseball, why do drugs? Is it because of the money and the influence? How do people get involved with drugs?
Well, I think it's two different ways. First of all, it becomes a situation of, well, maybe three different ways, from peer pressure of, here, I want to be doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. But I
Okay.
think a lot of it is built out of depression and stress and escape from your reality. And so if you're born into poverty and every single day is miserable, and you feel that you can't get ahead, and you have a thought process of, this is the end of, this is my life, that you want something to give you a feeling of euphoria at some point, right? And
Okay.
so that's one of the ways that I think a lot of people get into it, especially in the lower socioeconomic areas that are struggling, and it's miserable to get up every day and try to wonder where your next meal is coming from, wonder about your bills being paid, and if you have a brief exit from a drug, then that plays a part in, here's a brief moment of happiness for me.
Okay.
And then I think when it comes to the athletes and politicians and celebrities and all those different things, it becomes a point of access, and
Okay.
a space that you have achieved a certain point of success, and you think you're invincible, and you want to continue to conquer more mountains, and you think, if I can go past this space of drugs and have people like me, and bring people that to the table that wouldn't normally use the table because of what I have here. It's always a show. Like, why do people buy yachts, or people buy the big car?
Right? Yeah.
Because they want to have the attention of others, and they want to have that influence over others. So I think that becomes a big thing of what I've seen about why the drug culture is so popular on both sides of the coin.
Well, it's interesting about, you talk about how people view other people and the games that they play and everything. So I was president, executive director of junior team of the Kanawha Valley in West Virginia, and I inherited an embezzlement situation, which the board of directors went crazy. I went crazy, and but I had this guy on my board that Jim Thomas, and I will never forget him. He was a small guy in stature, and he owned about, I don't know, maybe 20 mines in West Virginia. Okay.
Mm.
So when I'd always ask him for a donation, he said, "Hey, why don't you come up for some lemonade at the house and everything?" I said, "Yeah, that's cool." So his wife would make us sandwiches. We had some lemonade. And then he said, "Martha, why don't you go get my checkbook?" And he'd write out a check for $10,000. Okay. That was pretty cool. We never did talk about money. We talked about life, and we talked about some funny things. But most of the board of directors that went to my office and everything for a board meeting drove around in, fancy cars, Mercedes Benz, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what he drove up in? He drove up in a Subaru. Okay. And he was very humble. And I think, I don't know, I think when you talk about this kind of stuff, Ray, I think it goes back to some core values that a business have and an individual has. What do you think about that? Are you with me?
I'm here.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. So I think that goes back into the core of how you actually feel about yourself, and how you actually look at what success is. You talk about a Warren Buffett, or Bill Gates, or Robert Johnson, those folks who have achieved incredible success in financial form
Hmm.
that still go to McDonald's in the morning.
Right.
What we
Exactly.
want, and still drives a car that most people that get any spot of circumstance that they want to take it out and show everybody world to the world that here I'm successful because my outward appearance shows that I'm successful. But what really makes you successful is actually how you feel about yourself, how you react, how other people that are important to you see you, and how the world values you. I mean, because most people don't value anybody until they're gone, right? Which is a sad state of affairs.
No, but it's
But
true. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But the reality of it is you don't have to be outwardly braggadocious to put yourself in a space where people respect you, and so you can have everything in the world and still be miserable. That's one of the biggest keys that I've seen over my
Okay.
life. And that you asked me about the things that I've seen that were like the craziest stories, and the craziest story is, when we talk about, what is it to gain the world and lose your soul?
Thank
And
you.
I've seen that so many times, right? From people that have come from nothing, achieved the top tier of success, but continue to sabotage themselves because their self-worth is based in what people think about them and not what they outwardly think about themselves.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a key word, sabotage, because people self-sabotage themselves all the time. They can be angry and they can respond and everything. I know you're a motivational speaker and everything, and I love that. But I think people when they're up and down, they will self sabotage and drugs or alcohol or getting in fights with one another because of the ego. I think the male ego is very dominant and very dangerous in a lot of ways. But I think if, like you said, I think if we sink our teeth back into core values. I was told at one time that I give off the Republican vibe, and it's about God, guns, and glory. And I said, well, I don't have any glory about me except for Christ in me. But the bottom line is that I've got some guns too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a couple as well. So I mean, you want to protect yourself. You want to go out and also be able to. I like skeet shooting. I've we vacationed in, well, because I came from the hood in Palmer Park, Maryland, and then
Yeah.
I've got to see some different things. I got to go to Montana for a vacation, and I got to fly fish and ski shoot and see the ranches and some different things, a little bit of hunting stuff that I would have never seen if I didn't reach a certain level, which is sad, because I think that's been the greatest education in my life, is to experience different cultures, experience different things. And I think the more that we're able to transfer our experiences to other people and other cultures, then our vibes are just human vibes. It's not what someone says this is what it should be, because I have a ton of Republican friends, I have a ton of Democratic friends, a ton of friends from independents, and other friends who just
Right.
don't care about anything.
Right.
So, I mean, but
Right. Yeah.
there's the people, but you live and you learn, and the more you expose people to other thought processes, I think we can make some headway.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because I think as I have co-hosts such as yourself on my podcast, there's a lot of common threads, but I think one of the most significant ones is this family, and I think that when we talk about the status of our country or the status of my daughter and I got into a discussion the other day, and she's a school teacher. She has her master's in chemistry, but she teaches second graders at a Christian school. So
Well, thank her for her service.
okay, I will. I will. Yeah, it's
Jeez.
pretty cool. And
Yeah.
so we talked about, because my grandson, brag about him. He's a basketball player, and he's at the high school level, and he's being looked at Penn State already, and a lot of other colleges. And he gets criticized for being good. I mean, he and my granddaughter, they'll get up at 5 o'clock and go work out at the gym. Okay. And
Mhm.
nobody else will do that. And so they get criticized. I said, Amanda, what you need to do is you need to forget about people criticizing you and stay tuned to your family, stay tuned to your kids. Don't let anybody else, because people are always going to throw rocks at you if you want to succeed, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you said that because, from a family standpoint, I was the first person in my family ever to go to college. I was first generation, and there
Wow.
was never any thought of anybody else. But from me going to college and graduating, the transformation happened because I didn't want to give that same stigma to my kids. And so my oldest daughter, who's brilliant, she got a academic scholarship to Pepperdine University,
Oh, that's
graduated.
an excellent college. Excellent
Yeah,
college. Yeah.
yeah, man. Academic scholarship. They thought we were just all athletes, but she graduated top of her class. Then,
Awesome.
my oldest son is playing football and pursuing his education in Georgia, Savannah State University. And then my other two kids, my youngest son, he's a star athlete out here, a really good student as well in California, and he'll be going to a pretty top school coming up this next year is in senior year. And then my baby girl is probably the best athlete in the whole family.
Ah,
Um,
love it.
and she's getting college scholarship. So, because there's one move can change it. One act can change your whole trajectory. Like, I've been married for 22 years now with my wife, and I've
Congratulations. Yeah.
been together for 26, 27 years. And, that was, I've seen divorce. Most of the people that I grew up with, the families were divorced. There was no, um, you know, um, thought process of staying together. And it's just different of how, we've been able to achieve this, space as a family. And I think that goes back to our core values. And I know our belief in higher power, and being curious, and having open conversations and discussions. So I'm a Christian, but I've studied every single religion. I mean, when I came, because my family was so Baptist, so Southern
Right.
Baptist,
Yeah.
that
Yes. Yeah. I
I,
got you.
yeah. So I studied Islam, I studied Buddhism, I studied everything else, and came back to Christianity.
Well, good for you, because that's the bottom line. I mean, we don't want to get off on theology, but we could spend another hour on theology. But one of the influences, and I talk about this company quite often in terms of I interviewed this guy who I I watched him on Facebook. He's the owner. His brothers and him are the owners of like 9 restaurants, and I watched him on Facebook. And one of the most interesting things I watched on him on Facebook was that when his training, he started out by saying their core values, and without hesitation, he would say, right, he would say, if you don't really want to adhere to these core values, he said, there's the door. Okay. Now, most
Mm-hmm.
restaurants have a high turnover rate, okay? And some people will say, the Latinos, they got green cards or whatever. You're not going to see this in this guy's restaurants, okay? They own an Italian restaurant. They own, all kinds. And so he said, we have the lowest turn rate of just about any restaurants in the area because of the core values that they set their hooks in, right? And they treat their people with kindness. They treat them like people. And to get back to what you were saying, if we don't value people like they are people, then I think we're going to fail as companies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And any my companies, from my sports management company, my Leonard Sports and Entertainment, or Ovations, I always make sure that first and foremost that you are aligned, or people that we bring in are aligned with our core values of how we treat people.
Mm-hmm.
Secondarily is that they believe in the mission. They believe in the core of what the company is bringing to the table. Because if you don't have that vision, if you don't see, and it's just a job to you, then it's going to be just a job performance. But I like to have people who are on board that have the same kind of vibe. I don't need everybody to be the same interest. I don't need everybody to have the same experience. But as far as how we deal from a culture standpoint, these are the things that we're expecting, and these are the things that we look at about anybody that we bring to the table and how we actually function. So there's a core trend of how you'll be treated from me as a CEO to anybody who's an intern or a rep. We make sure that everybody that's involved is on the same page as much as we can.
Well, okay, so that kind of leads me into my next question. How did you become an entrepreneur? At what age do you think that there was an interest in, because I have a story about my granddaughter, and I'll let you go after I share this story. So at 12, she started this little company. She wasn't incorporated, but she sold this goop. I forget what it's called. And she sold it. She made $1,000 in about 2 months. Okay. Now she's working on a lip gloss for women. And so I told her the other day when I was over there, I said, just FYI, you need to probably continue this, because I'll tell you what, I already have an investor signed up for you. Okay. And he's willing to dive into it because he likes you and he likes what you're doing right now. So, how did you become an entrepreneur? And at what age did you think you were an entrepreneur?
Well, that's a loaded question for me, because
Okay.
I saw it early on with my father, and how his career was being navigated, because initially there was the big promoters that would own you as a boxer, and most boxers, not almost 99%, end up broke after their career.
Really?
And yeah, the navigation of what happened with my father's career is he just had some good people around him that had a different idea. And so Mike Trainer, who was the attorney at the time, came up with a program of saying, instead of signing with a promoter, let's bet on ourselves. He got 30 people to invest $1,000. My father had his first fight in Baltimore, and made $45,000, paid everybody back with interest, and was a free agent. And so he actually owned himself. And Muhammad Ali had told him, when he was at the athletic club receiving an award, told him, make sure you sign your own checks. And so
I love it. Yeah.
from there, hearing that was always in the back of my head, I guess, of being an entrepreneur. And as I moved from the neighborhoods that we were in PG County, Maryland, to Potomac, Maryland, and going to a school that was predominantly Jewish and Asian,
Okay.
I got to see a whole different thought process. And so you had some kids that were mowing lawns, you had kids that were doing different things, but I mean, parents were successful, but still having that space where it was mandatory that you owned your own career. And I would see my uncles and aunts that were miserable going to work every single day, working many, many hours and not having anything to show for it. And
Right.
so, for me, I said, I've been blessed with the opportunity to have a platform, to have a space, and if I can figure out how to do something and own it myself, then I will always do that. And that was kind of my spirit as an entrepreneur, is to be able to feed creativity, to be able to grow something out of nothing and turn it into something. And it just gives you a whole different space of pride that it's something that you accomplished and you built. So that's kind of my journey.
Well, so what was your first product you sold and made money on?
So my first product was actually a service. And so when I came out of college, I thought I was going to be a top tier NFL player. I was a star in football and track and field. I went to Ohio
Okay.
University.
Yeah, I
And I got
know. Yeah.
a
Go
sports
Buckeyes, right? Yeah, that's your
yeah,
motto.
I got a sports management degree, and I kind of came out of there and was like, the only thing I really know is sports. So let's go into the sports world. I got an internship with the hockey team in Atlanta, Georgia. And, after a about a year, I was like, maybe I could actually do this stuff. Jerry Maguire, the movie came out, and I saw being an agent. I was like, that's pretty cool. I have a sports management degree. I'm no longer playing sports, so maybe I should be an agent. So I went and found a mentor, talked to Lee Steinberg, who was the movie's
Oh,
base,
wow.
and just jumped out there and started a company. And one of my friends who was one of the top picks in the NBA draft asked me, he believed in me enough just to say, here, you can represent me. And so it started, and it just grew from there. And, I sold my first company when I was about 25 years old, just from basically starting out, knowing nothing, made a whole bunch of mistakes. But once I saw that I could be successful, I could hire people, I could bring people in, I could change people's lives, then there was no going back. I've worked for different companies. I worked for Merrill Lynch. I worked for SunTrust Bank. I mean, so I have the corporate experience, but it was every time I went into the corporate space, even though it would be really good money and secure, always the entrepreneur spirit always called me back.
Well, I tell everybody, I mean, I've had successful companies. I've been near bankrupt twice and everything. And so a couple of things. One, I think there's nothing like, I don't have a master's degree, and I lack 1 year of getting my BS degree. But if you were to ask me about my credentials, because of my experience, I have a master's degree in business, and I can talk circles, I can talk low level, I can talk all kinds of parameters of the business world and everything, because I have a grip on the entrepreneur. My heart is in the small business realm, because I think that you have to. I don't think Chamber of Commerce, not to throw them under the bus, but I don't think there's a group out there that's really making sure that the small business. I know there's the SBDC or whatever, and they have consulting, but I think the real entrepreneur needs somebody that's been through it and has lived the life of entrepreneurship in order to do it, because entrepreneurship just doesn't. So, well, I guess my point is this. I told my kids that when I'm like 95 years old or 100 years old, I will still be representing entrepreneurs. Okay. And I think it's just a fabulous thing that both the government and politicians don't push enough of, is the small business people.
I absolutely agree. And I think that scary thing for me is entrepreneurship and creativity are dying.
Yep.
And there's not enough platforms for people who want to take the chance or want to push their platform out there, because they're getting screwed up by the major companies, or they're
Yep.
getting beat down by the cost of actually starting a business and trying to take care of your family. So that's one of the reasons why I started Ovations, is because I think the educational model is changing. I think the space where we help each other and grow each other in the community is dying out. And I wanted to create a space where we actually have people helping people, to be a community of experts or people who have gone through it, actually done it, not just professors in colleges, which,
Right.
have made respect for people who've gone
Sure.
through and gotten their masters and Juris Doctorates.
Sure.
But there's something that's learning from somebody who actually put the blood, sweat, and tears in, and has had the failures, on the way to any type of success. Because I failed over and over again, and that was the biggest way
Yep.
I learned. And I think the more we have this community of entrepreneurship, that is where growth and innovation starts. And, I'll always be a proponent to it. My son actually started his own clothing line while he's in college. And so
I love it. I love it. That is so cool. Applause. I'm sorry.
Yeah. He's not scared. And, I think because I've always had that entrepreneur nature
Yeah.
and I think we need to feed that more.
I'm excited because, I'll tell you what, my my son and my son-in-law, only had a 2-year degree, in boiler making. Okay. Now they work for, gas companies. They both make about $150,000 a year, playing Tetris. Okay.
Wow.
So I think they move pressured gas all over the country. So one of the things is I'm not a big proponent of college. Okay.
Right.
I think that entrepreneur needs to be taught in the schools. And I think there needs to be a curriculum of economics on how to handle money, how to do a lot of stuff. And that is gone in the school system. So it's back on the parents. And so your son, evidently, man, he picked up on your vibe of being an entrepreneur. And so that's so cool because that's an outlet. I mean, I told my granddaughter, I said, listen, Anna, you may not have to go to school. If you drive your entrepreneur skills, you may not have to work another day in your life. Okay.
Right. Right.
So, so let's talk a little bit about Ovations because I was very impressed with that website. I was very impressed with the number of staff that you have. And I was also very impressed with the curriculum in which you aspired to just a minute ago. So let's talk a little bit about that. How was that originated?
Yeah, so I've been had a consulting company and I was doing government contracting, and also corporate contracting, where I would go and do training across the world for the DoD, the military, for different corporate organizations, and train to was mostly leadership or effective management. It went into destructive behavior, all these different things that organizations were struggling with. And you may not think that some of the biggest organizations in the world are struggling, and the people who are their staff or their constituents are not listening because they come from the same repertoire of music, or they're
No,
playing
right?
the same
Yeah,
tune. And when
yeah.
you bring someone in, just like we got, not to go back to music, but if someone plays in a different key and gives you something a little bit different than what you're used to, it triggers something in you, and it
It,
triggers like right.
it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was when the pandemic happened. One of the things that I missed, having direct dialogue with people, having a space where, creativity was being born. And I wanted to build something where, we connected experts to, folks that wanted to learn in a different space, because I wasn't the greatest college student. I learned from the people that were around me that were actually. Maybe there's a space where we can create, you don't have to pay $400,000 for a 4-year degree, but you can
Right.
pay, a smaller fee to someone who actually has a small business, and have them, teach and mentor you, and give you their curriculum, and you can learn it at a faster pace, but also have the interaction of a community that is going to be attentive to your needs, and want to help you grow and not make some of the mistakes that they made. So it's almost like a mentorship growth program, but also to allow you to expand your brand. And so, I created a platform that does that, that is a community. And
Yeah. Go
we
ahead.
grew, we grew from like one or two people to we have a wait list, and we have almost 700 people on the platform right now. And we're moving forward pretty quickly.
Just as a little caveat, a friend of mine is the Lions president in Ashland, Kentucky. I had lunch with him the other day, and I moved to West Virginia a little bit closer to my family due to my wife's passing and stuff. And so I told him, I said, listen, I have an idea, okay? And I said, if I stay in the Ashland area, this is what I was going to propose to you. I was going to propose because, again, within the Chamber of Commerce, he doesn't have time to mentor the small business owners, okay?
Right.
They join, they get a membership, they get access to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, J, whatever, but they don't really benefit from a membership, okay, in my opinion.
Right.
I told him, I said, here's what I was going to do. I was going to offer you my podcast to members of your alliance, and then I was going to charge them a little bit of, advertising because it's basically free advertising. But I was also going to offer them consulting for a couple of hours before I go, do some stuff on the air. So he said, that's a pretty good idea because, a lot of these programs, I mean, I don't know. I just think small businesses, I don't know. They fail because they don't have a community to go to. And so I really am excited about what you guys are doing in that space. I had lunch with an owner of a company, his wife and him. I took him to lunch, and they started a cleaning business. And, that's pretty competitive. And
Right.
I looked right at the wife and I said, so how many hours a day does they start up? I said, how many days does he go out and sell or get new clients? She said 2 hours a day. I looked right at him and I said, that's the recipe for failure. Okay. That's just what's
Hmm.
going to happen to you.
Right.
And, his wife looked at me, she smiled and everything. And I said, so see all these doors around here? You need to go make some cold calls. Right. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, cold calling is a lost art, and that's the thing with the funny thing about being an entrepreneur is that people see the end result. Sometimes they don't see the failure and they don't see the hustle and work that it has to go into it to every single day, because you're not just gonna get a paycheck every 2 weeks. If
no,
if
I
you
mean,
don't, yeah. I mean, it's like you got to go out and hunt.
yeah, I mean, I was let go of I was corporate trainer and developer of a regional long distance company. I gave the guy, the owner, $1 million idea, and he didn't pay me commission or anything. So anyway, so I was let go of that, and long story short, I turned on a dime, started a consulting business, went after the same people that I did long distance and data telecommunications with, and started my consulting and showing them how they can save money. So I went on unemployment for about 30 days, developed an LLC, and then I started having revenue, and I was able to pay the bills within 45 days of losing a corporate job.
Wow, wow, yeah.
So that's
It's
turning on a dime. That's. I mean, I've always had the entrepreneur spirit, just like you. Okay, and I don't know whether my dad had like a hot dog business when I was real little, and
right.
he set up these hot dog stands all over Ventura, California, and I was just kind of I don't know what happened to me, but I just enjoy that spirit, and I really enjoy the Ovation, um, uh, I guess the values and the structure of that for small business owners. So kudos to you. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
So I want to share something because I think this is from an anonymous dude, or it might be a female, I don't know. But here's kind of a quote. It says, "Actions prove who someone is. Words just prove who they want to be." Right?
Yes, love it.
Okay. And so I think that's the whole thing about entrepreneurship is action. You can't just, say I want to be a business for myself and then just go after, some other I don't know, some other work ethic. I don't know. But so listen, we're almost running out of time, and I really want to say thank you so much, Ray, for this engaging conversation and the insight into your family, the insight into your world. And hopefully at a later time we can get on with another podcast and talk about some other stuff. But thank you so much, and we look forward to chatting a little bit further on.
Absolutely, Lauren. A pleasure to be on here. Thank you for having such an engaging conversation and doing what you do. Like telling stories is, and open up the doors for different types of thought is kind of the engine that moves everything. So I'm proud of you and proud of where you are, and thank you for having me on.
You're welcome, man. Have a blessed day.
All right, you too. Take care.